I've been practicing men's health for over 30 years. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect this to happen to me. It started quietly. I noticed my energy dipping in the mornings. My workouts felt heavier, and something even more personal. My erections weren't as strong or as consistent. At first, I brushed it off. Just aging, right? That's what I had told my patients for years. But then it kept getting worse. I tightened my routine, improved my sleep, added supplements, even doubled down on foods I believed were heart-healthy. And this is the part that really caught me off guard. The more I followed those habits, the more off I felt. My drive dropped, my body felt slower, and there was this subtle disconnect I couldn't ignore anymore. That's when something shifted for me. I stopped thinking like a doctor who had all the answers, and started looking at myself like a patient. And what I realized was uncomfortable. It wasn't just age, it was a hormonal shift I had missed. And part of it was coming from something I was eating almost every day. A simple nut, something I had recommended to others without a second thought. I started testing things, cutting it out, bringing it back, adjusting timing, tracking how my body responded. Most of what I tried didn't change much, but when I finally understood the mechanism behind it, that's when things clicked. See, most men think testosterone drops just because of age. What they don't realize is how certain foods can quietly raise estrogen at the same time. And that imbalance can speed everything up. So in this video, I'm going to break this down in a simple way. I'll show you exactly which nut I'm talking about, why it affects your hormones more than you think, and most importantly, 5 practical changes you can start today to protect your testosterone, your blood flow, and your confidence after 60. And number 3. I almost dismissed it at first. It didn't seem important compared to everything else. But in the end, it turned out to be the piece that changed the direction of my hormone balance the most. If you're curious where this comes from and what's really happening inside your body, I've added more details down in the description. Before we go deeper, let me ask you something simple. How old are you? I read every comment, and it helps me understand what stage you're in and what your body might be going through right now. All right, let's start with number 1, because this is where most men over 60 get it wrong. And once you see this clearly, you'll understand why one small change, like what you eat every day, can begin to shift your estrogen, your testosterone, and how your body responds, faster than you expect. 1. Why you should stop eating this nut after 60. Let me start with something simple, and honestly, something most men overlook. If you're over 60, one of the easiest things you can do starting today is this. Stop eating that healthy nut every single day, especially in large amounts. I know it sounds almost too basic to matter, but this small change can begin to shift how your body regulates blood flow and hormones. What surprised me over the years is how often this one habit quietly works against men who are trying to do everything right. Here's why this matters more than you think. After 60, your body produces less nitric oxide, what we call NO, which is the molecule responsible for relaxing your blood vessels and allowing proper circulation. When nitric oxide levels drop, blood flow becomes weaker, slower, and less responsive, which directly affects energy, heart health, and yes, erection quality. Now here's the connection most people miss. Certain nuts, when overconsumed, can interfere with this balance by promoting conditions that favor higher estrogen activity, which indirectly reduces nitric oxide efficiency. It sounds complicated, but think of it this way. Nitric oxide is like the signal that tells your blood vessels to open up. Testosterone helps support that signal, while excess estrogen can dampen it. So when your hormone balance shifts, especially when testosterone drops and estrogen rises, you're not just dealing with hormones, you're dealing with circulation. And circulation is everything when it comes to how your body performs day to day. There have been observations showing that improving nitric oxide availability can enhance blood flow efficiency by up to 20 to 30% in older adults, and even modest improvements can lead to noticeable changes in stamina and vascular response. At the same time, reducing factors that push estrogen higher may help preserve more of your natural testosterone, which creates a kind of dual benefit: better hormone balance and better blood flow working together instead of against each other. That combination is where many men begin to feel like themselves again. So what should you actually do? Start by limiting that nut to no more than a small amount, a few times per week instead of daily, and avoid consuming it late in the day when your body is more hormonally sensitive. At the same time, support nitric oxide naturally. Simple habits like walking, staying hydrated, and including foods that promote circulation can make a real difference over time. This isn't about quick fixes, it's about consistency, because the body responds to what you do repeatedly, not occasionally. And here's the part most men don't realize. Nitric oxide is only one piece of the puzzle, because what's quietly happening next inside your body may be even more important, and it starts with how this same nut affects your estrogen levels in ways you probably haven't considered. 2. This nut is quietly raising your estrogen. Now here's where things get more interesting, and for many men, more concerning. One of the simplest adjustments you can make is to stop treating this nut as an everyday health food, because in the body of a man over 60, it doesn't always behave the way you expect. It sounds harmless, even beneficial, but when consumed frequently and in larger amounts, it can begin to shift your internal hormone environment in subtle ways. And the reason comes down to something most people never think about: plant compounds that mimic estrogen. This nut is rich in compounds called lignans, a type of phytoestrogen. In modern science, we understand that these compounds can bind to estrogen receptors and influence how your body interprets hormonal signals. In more traditional systems of medicine, foods like this are sometimes described as cooling or yin-promoting, which, when overused, can suppress the more yang or androgenic energy associated with male vitality. When you combine both perspectives, you start to see the same pattern. Too much of this input, over time, may tilt the balance away from testosterone. Here's where the biology becomes more precise. Lignans don't just sit passively in your system, they interact with your gut microbiome, which converts them into active forms that can influence estrogen activity. At the same time, these compounds may indirectly stimulate aromatase, the enzyme that converts testosterone into estrogen. That's the synergy most men don't realize. You're not only introducing estrogen-like signals, you may also be accelerating the conversion of your existing testosterone. Two pathways, working together, quietly shifting your hormonal balance. There have been controlled observations where higher intake of lignan-rich foods was associated with measurable changes in hormone levels, including reductions in free testosterone and shifts in estrogen markers. In some cases, reductions in free testosterone have been observed in the range of around 10 to 15%, while estrogen-related activity showed a relative increase. Now, that might not sound dramatic, but in a man whose levels are already declining with age, that shift can be enough to feel: lower drive, slower response, less firmness. So how do you approach this without overreacting? Start with an onboarding phase. If you've been eating this nut daily, don't quit overnight. Reduce to half your usual portion for the first 7 days, then bring it down to 1 to 2 teaspoons, no more than 2 to 3 times per week. Avoid combining it with other high phytoestrogen foods like soy products during the same meal, and try to consume it earlier in the day when your hormonal fluctuations are more stable. Over time, this allows your body to recalibrate without shock, and you can begin to observe how your energy and response improve. And this is where it leads to something even deeper. Because raising estrogen is only part of the story. What really changes the game is what happens next, when your body starts losing testosterone faster than you realize, often without any obvious warning signs. 3. How it lowers your testosterone faster than you think. Now, this is the part most men don't expect. How fast this shift can actually happen. If you're over 60, your body is already more sensitive to hormonal signals, which means even small triggers can create noticeable changes in a short period of time. And one of the key compounds behind this is lignans, which we talked about earlier, but now we need to go one level deeper into what they actually do inside your body. Because this isn't just a slow, long-term effect. Parts of this process can begin within hours. Here's the simple version of the process. Once you consume this nut, lignans are converted by your gut into active compounds that interact with your endocrine system. At the same time, they can influence an enzyme called aromatase, which takes your existing testosterone and converts it into estrogen. So instead of just losing testosterone gradually, you're actively redirecting it into a different hormone pathway. That's why some men notice subtle changes the same day: lower drive, less responsiveness, even a slight dip in energy. There have been short-term observations showing that dietary components influencing aromatase activity can begin altering hormone ratios within hours, especially in older adults with already reduced baseline testosterone. In longer observations, consistent intake of lignin-rich foods has been associated with reductions in free testosterone in the range of 10 to 15% over a few weeks. And here's where it becomes practical. Those changes don't just stay on paper. They show up as reduced stamina, slower recovery, and less physical drive throughout the day. Now, some men push back when they hear this. They'll say, "I've been eating this for years, I feel fine," or "It's natural, so it must be safe." And I understand that thinking. But what I've seen over and over is that these shifts are gradual and then suddenly noticeable. And interestingly, when men start reducing their intake, they sometimes feel a temporary fluctuation, maybe slight fatigue or restlessness. That's not a bad sign. That's your body recalibrating, adjusting back toward its natural balance. So here's what I recommend. If you're currently consuming this nut daily, stop for 3 to 5 days and observe how your body responds, especially in the morning and evening. Then reintroduce it at a much lower amount, no more than 1 teaspoon, and not every day. Pair that with simple habits that support testosterone, like light resistance movement or morning sunlight, to reinforce both short-term and long-term benefits. Because the goal isn't just to stop a negative effect, it's to restore a system that works for you again. And this brings us to something even more important, because hormones are only part of the equation. What ultimately determines your performance is how well your blood is actually moving, and that's controlled by a completely different mechanism that most men never connect to this issue. 4. What this does to your blood flow and erections. This might sound a little unusual at first, but stay with me. One of the most effective ways to understand what's happening in your body is to temporarily remove the trigger and actively support blood flow at the same time. In other words, don't just stop the nut. Pair that change with a simple circulation boost, like a short walk right after meals or a glass of water first thing in the morning. It sounds basic, but this combination reveals something powerful about how your body responds when the interference is gone. And for many men over 60, the difference shows up faster than expected. Now let's talk about what's really happening underneath. The key compound here is nitric oxide, the same molecule we mentioned earlier, but now we're looking at it from a deeper level. Nitric oxide doesn't work alone. It signals through pathways involving cyclic GMP, which tells the smooth muscles in your blood vessels to relax and expand. When testosterone is low and estrogen is relatively higher, this signaling becomes weaker, and your blood vessels don't open as efficiently as they should. This affects 2 levels of circulation. First, the larger blood vessels that deliver volume, and second, the microcirculation, the tiny capillaries that actually nourish tissues. When both are compromised, you may notice things like colder hands and feet, slower healing, numbness, or that delayed response when it comes to erections. It's not just about getting blood there, it's about how well it flows once it arrives. There have been findings showing that improving nitric oxide pathways can increase vascular dilation by up to 30% and enhance microcirculation efficiency by around 15 to 20% in older adults. On the other side, hormonal imbalance, especially reduced testosterone, has been linked to decreased endothelial function, which directly impacts erection quality. That's why this isn't just theoretical, it's something men actually feel in their day-to-day life. So here's how to apply this in a practical way. Start by removing or reducing the nut as we discussed, then support your nitric oxide levels consistently. Begin with light daily movement, hydration, and meals that are easier to digest. Then gradually increase intensity, longer walks, slightly more activity, always listening to your body. Timing also matters. Morning routines tend to be more effective because your vascular system is more responsive earlier in the day. One important note: if you have cardiovascular conditions or are on medication, especially for blood pressure, You should approach any changes gradually and speak with your doctor. The goal is not to force your body, but to restore its natural responsiveness safely. And once you start seeing these changes, you'll realize something. This is still not the most powerful lever you can pull. Because in the next step, we're going to look at what actually ties all of this together and why a single adjustment can amplify everything you've done so far. 5. What you should do instead, starting today. Now let me show you what I consider the most practical and effective step you can take starting today. If you remove the nut but don't replace it with something that actively supports your hormones and circulation, you're only doing half the job. What I recommend to many of my patients over 60 is something simple, affordable, and surprisingly powerful: beetroot. And the key compound here is dietary nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide, the same molecule responsible for opening your blood vessels and improving blood flow. Here's why this works so well. Think of nitric oxide like a signal that tells your blood vessels to relax and expand, almost like opening a faucet to let more water through. As we age, that signal becomes weaker, but beetroot provides the raw material your body needs to rebuild it. Studies have shown that dietary nitrates can improve blood flow efficiency by up to 20 to 30%, and in some cases, enhance exercise endurance by over 15%. There are even comparisons suggesting that the nitric oxide pathway activated by foods like beetroot works along a similar biological route as certain medications used for circulation, just in a more gradual and natural way. Now, the preparation matters more than most people realize. The best method is to use fresh beetroot juice or lightly cooked beets, not overly processed versions. Start with about 100 to 150 milliliters of fresh juice in the morning, ideally on an empty stomach, and if you prefer solid food, 1 small beet lightly steamed. Keep the temperature moderate so you preserve the active compounds. Give your body a few days to adjust, then you can increase slightly depending on how you feel. Consistency is the real secret here. This isn't a one-time fix. It's a daily signal you're sending to your body to restore proper circulation and support hormone balance. Many men tell me it's easier than they expected. It's inexpensive, easy to find, and simple to prepare. And over time, that steady improvement in blood flow can support better energy, stronger vascular response, and more confidence in how your body performs. So if you're wondering whether it's too late to turn things around after 60, it's not. Your body still responds when you give it the right inputs. And sometimes, it's not about doing more, it's about doing the right things consistently. No drugs, low cost, and grounded in real physiology. That's where the real change begins. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. On this channel, we break things down in a simple, practical way. Real science, real experiences, and strategies that actually make sense for men over 60. We're not here to overwhelm you. We're here to help you understand what your body is going through and what you can do about it step by step. In the next videos, I'll be sharing more insights on how to support your testosterone, improve your blood flow, and maintain your strength and confidence as you age, without relying on complicated routines or expensive solutions. Small changes, done consistently, can lead to real results over time. So if you're serious about taking control of your health and feeling like yourself again, subscribe now and stay with me on this journey. And as always, thank you for watching.